Guardians, ever since I heard Bungie announce that Act 2 will include Trace Rifle artifact perks, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to make a build that uses Prometheus Lens and watch the world burn. That's a callback to one of my other videos, so let's get right on into it. With this build, I knew that I wanted to use Prometheus Lens, and there are two main parts to Prometheus Lens. First, its intrinsic trait, Prismatic Inferno, which makes it so that as you continuously fire this weapon, it creates a growing solar bubble that will deal AoE damage, and it'll apply stacks of scorch to enemies, and kills will also refund ammo to the magazine. And second, its catalyst will give the weapon the incandescent perk, meaning that defeating enemies will scorch nearby enemies, applying up to 40 stacks of scorch. So I knew that we were getting two main artifact perks to buff this weapon even more. First, we have Beam Medic, so that rapid kills will heal you and nearby allies. And with that, we also got Harsh Refraction. This makes it so that dealing damage with exotic trace rifles against enemies that have an element matching debuff will give it 35% more damage. Or, in other words, Prometheus Lens will scorch everything, so it'll constantly have a 35% damage buff. The important thing to note is that Ignitions and Scorch will deal damage based on the initial source of Scorch. Prometheus Lens already amps this up by 10%, but with Weapon Surge and Radiant, we can amp up our ignition damage by over 50%. And since I knew the main goal would be using a solar weapon, it only seemed right to bring the exotic helmet, Verity's Brow. Now, kills with solar weapons will give us stacks of death throws, capping out at 5 stacks. These stacks will gradually decay over time, providing you with up to 100% more grenade damage and 2.5% grenade energy per second. And like with ignitions from Prometheus Lens, these ignitions will receive that 100% damage boost, making our grenades mini nukes. So let's dive into the build and break down how it works. For the super, it mainly depends on the activity that you're doing. In seasonal content, Song of Flame is the better option in my opinion, since you can use it for ad clear or safe boss DPS. But in raid and dungeon scenarios, I'd recommend Well of Radiance to be a better support player in DPS phases. For the class ability, I went with Phoenix Dive since it gives a burst of health and because it has a shorter cooldown, which will be important later. For the melee, I went with Incinerator Snap. This melee makes it easier to guarantee an ignition by snapping at the feet of an enemy. However, in content where you want to play further back, Celestial Fire would be the better option. As for the grenade, I'm bringing the Solar Grenade. This gives us the most total damage and gives us even more damage from our first aspect, Touch of Flame. This aspect buffs most of the solar grenades. Fusion grenades will explode twice. Healing grenades will provide restoration times 2, and the most important is the Solar Grenade. Solar grenades now last 2 seconds longer and will release blobs of lava that deal pretty good damage, though it is a bit of RNG on where the blobs actually go. The other aspect that we're taking is Helion. This now makes it so that when using our class ability, aka Phoenix Dive, we create a solar buddy, and this buddy will last for 20 seconds, launching solar projectiles that will deal damage and apply up to 40 stacks of Scorch. This is nice for generic gameplay, but it can add up to 200,000 damage in DPS phases by causing more ignitions. And this is the reason why I'm taking Phoenix Dive for that shorter cooldown, to have more solar buddies active. When it comes to the fragments, for our first fragment, I'm taking Ember of Ashes. Now, all sources of Scorch will apply more stacks of Scorch, leading to more overall ignitions. And yes, this includes the Scorch from Prometheus Lens. Next, I take Ember of Torches, so that when we deal damage with a powered melee, we become Radiant. This is nice for stunning barrier champions, but it also adds in an extra 20% weapon damage at a moment's notice, which is really nice for melting mini-bosses or bosses. Then I take Ember of Blistering. Now, defeating enemies with ignitions will give back grenade energy depending on the tier of enemy killed, which usually ends up being about 8 to 12% per enemy. And finally, I'm taking Ember of Resolve. Now, grenade kills will cure us. This just adds in another way to heal since we won't be speccing into Restoration. And if you're enjoying the video, leaving a like and subscribing would be much appreciated. Alright, let's get right back into it. So what does this look like in action? Well, the main thing you want to remember is to keep getting kills with Prometheus Lens to keep up your death throw stacks. That way you can increase your grenade damage and regeneration rate. Throw those grenades at large group of enemies or tougher targets like mini bosses and bosses to instantly melt them. Anytime you want to melt enemies a bit quicker, simply hit an enemy with your powered melee to become Radiant. I try to use my class ability sparingly since it is your main source of healing, though you can use it when you're about to start an encounter to have a solar buddy at your side. In DPS phases, pop that Song of Flame or Well of Radiance to instantly become Radiant. I like to try and enter DPS phases with at least a few stacks of death throws to help melt the boss, because as you can see, your grenades can deal over 400,000 damage with a single grenade. If you have enemies near the boss, you can keep scoring kills with Prometheus Lens to keep up your stacks and potentially throw another grenade depending on how long the DPS phase always is. So let's talk about ways to improve the build. For stats, I like to shoot for 100 in resilience and discipline. After that, I go for as much recovery as possible. And when it comes to the armor mods, for helmet mods, first I like to take a solar siphon mod to help create a ton of orbs. And that's because we will be primarily using Prometheus Lens as our main weapon. And since we do want to use a trace rifle as much as possible, I'm also bringing Special Ammo Finder to help create more special ammo breaks. And then I'm taking Ashes to assets. Now grenade kills will give back even more super energy, which pairs perfectly with Verity's Brow. When it comes to gauntlet mods, first I like to bring firepower. That way, when we get grenade kills, we create orbs every 10 seconds. Then I take impact induction. That way, when we deal damage with our powered melee, we get back more grenade energy. And finally, I take a harmonic loader mod. That way we can reload our solar weapons quicker. And when it comes to chest mods, in most content, I'm recommending 3 resistance mods, 2 elemental resistance to match the activity, and 1 concussive dampener. But always make sure to take the most appropriate resistance mods for your situation. As for the leg mods, first I like to take Innervation. That way we get a bump of grenade energy by picking up an orb. I'm trying to feed back as much grenade energy as possible to constantly throw my grenades since they deal so much damage. But if you are struggling with survivability, then you could swap this out for recuperation. Then I like to take 2 solar weapon surges to boost our solar weapon damage by 17% while we have armor charge active. And this only compounds with the artifact weapon damage and radiant. As for the class mods, I first take time dilation so that our weapon surge will last longer. Then I bring powerful attraction to pick up any nearby orbs on class ability usage. And finally, I bring Bomber, so that when we use our class ability, we gain a bump of grenade energy. And when it comes to artifact perks, we already mentioned that you want to bring Beam Medic and Harsh Refraction. And those are the 2 main ones, but we do have a few more that can be helpful. Overload Trace Rifle will make it so that sustained damage with Trace Rifles will exhaust enemies, meaning they will output less damage. Elemental Siphon can be nice since kills with Prometheus Lens will create fire sprites, which can be picked up for 10% more grenade energy. And after that, you just want to bring matching weapon perks. For strand weapons, bring Unraveling Orbs and Horde Shuttle. That way you can unravel and create threadlings for more damage. I also like to bring a fusion rifle, so that means I can bring particle reconstruction to apply a unique weaken, adding up to 27.6% more damage for fusion rifles. But you can also bring Dreadful Finisher, so that finishing elite or higher enemies will spawn a special ammo break for you and your team, making it a bit easier to run those double special loadouts. As for weapons, in the kinetic slot, I like to use this as a utility slot or a DPS slot. My favorite option is to bring a DPS fusion rifle. For me, that means Scatter Signal with Overflow and Controlled Burst, and this makes it super easy to melt mini bosses and rapidly apply particle reconstruction. For the energy slot, the main option is Prometheus Lens since it will scorch everything and deal some good damage. But you could alternatively run a legendary solar trace rifle, like Acacia's Detection, with Reconstruction and Incandescent, or Retrace Path that can roll Subsistence and Demolitionist if you want even more grenade energy. And if you are running a legendary solar trace, then Harsh Refraction will actually bump your damage up by 50% instead of 35%. And finally, in that heavy slot, one of my favorite options is to bring a strong solar linear fusion rifle. For me, that means Cataclysmic with Bait and Switch, but you could opt for Sleeper Stimulant if you have the exotic slot available. Otherwise, bringing a strong solar machine gun can be fun for keeping up your death row stacks. Avalanche is a pretty good option, rolling with auto-loading holster and either incandescent or target lock. Well, there you have it, Guardians. We have a Prometheus Lens build that really lets you watch the world burn. But if you want to see 5 more Warlock builds geared for Episode Heresy, then go check out this video here. But remember, mastering this build is only the beginning. Experiment with different combinations and tweak your loadout to suit your playstyle. If you found this video helpful or just enjoyed seeing a new perspective, feel free to like the video and comment down below on what you might change or how you'd improve the Prometheus Lens build. Keep an eye out for future videos as we continue to explore the ever-evolving world of Destiny 2. Until then, may the threads of fate be ever in your favor. This is Lucky Mech, signing off. See you on the next adventure, Guardians.